Shine this up real nice, jabroni.
And I know just where to stick it, Ron.
What's your name?
Doesn't matter what my name is.
The Rock smells what you're cooking.
Pancakes, Rock! Pancakes!
Lay the smackdown in the kitchen, the loading dock, even the boiler room. Plus storylines and special guest referees. Everything inside the ring and almost anything out. WWF Smackdown. Lay it down, jabroni.
Finally, The Rock has come back to PlayStation.
And now, introducing the hottest new tag team in podcasting, George Feast, Johnny Clash, the Game Marks.
Welcome to the Game Marks podcast. My name is George Feast, and I, as always, am here with my tag team partner, independent wrestler, and Raw security personnel, Johnny Clash.
Don't mess with me.
Each week on this podcast, we break down the good, the bad, and the awesome of wrestling video games and offer up our ratings of Play It Forever or Future Endeavor.
You're fired!
This week on the podcast, we are playing WWF Smackdown for the PlayStation 1. But before we get into that, John, how are you?
I'm actually a little under the weather, but I'll pull through.
It's hard to hear that.
It's okay. This is the week I've been waiting for, probably since Mayhem. WWF Smackdown, another childhood hit of mine that I spent hours on hours playing.
I definitely do not think that you were alone with that. I think this is a big benchmark game for a lot of people, and I'm very excited to do the deep dive into this.
But before we get into that, last week we played the classic, probably the most recognizable, probably the most influential, the most decorated wrestling video game of all time, Pro Wrestling for the NES.
How are you feeling about it? You still sticking with your rating from last week?
Yeah, that's not a game that you just kind of forget about. It's the game.
Oh yeah, I agree. It's like we said last week. It's a staple. It still holds up. It still plays very, very well. It's simple, but it works, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and like always, leave us a review and 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, and give us a follow on all social media at GameMarksPod.
So, a little follow-up talking about social media. Guess what happened? We hit 200 followers on Twitter.
Organic followers. Not like
Which
we were
means
going off trying to follow people so they would follow us. We just let it happen.
And there's no bots. This was just you guys wanting to follow us and figure out, what's coming up in the weeks to come. And now we're gotta put out some extra bonus content in addition to all the Game Barista stuff, man. This is exciting.
Oh, man.
So stay tuned for that. That is definitely coming sometime within the next month or two. And then along with all the other bonus content, the live stream, the Game Drunks episode, all that's coming probably within the next couple months. So yeah, very excited. And what do you say we start the next following spree bonus content campaign here? So what do you say for our next little campaign and unlocking some bonus content? Let's try to get to 100 subscribers on our YouTube channel.
Ooh, I like it. We have about 40 now, but I think we could do it quickly.
Yeah.
If you want to see George keep whooping me and Clash at the Feast, head on over to our YouTube channel now.
And, as time goes on, we definitely have some more content that we want to be putting together and, have it be more than just Clash at the Feast. Obviously, once we do the live stream, we'll be able to cut that up and make that some extra additional content. Maybe we can break that up into a series. It'll be good. YouTube is definitely going to be a focus for us in 2020. John, are you ready to get into the question of the week?
This is easily becoming one of my favorite sections of this podcast, so let's do it.
This week, the question of the week is brought to you by us. Clash, did you happen to see that new shirt that we released on GameMarksPod.com?
Of course I did, Georgie. I bought them for all of my Secret Santas.
Oh boy, and what a gift it was. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's available in men's, women's, kids, tank tops, long sleeve, and even sweatshirts.
All of that, plus, it was designed by me.
Oh, God. I guess everyone needs their moment, and this will be yours, John. Head on over to GameMarksPod.com and get yours today. The question of the week, I believe it is my turn this week, right? Okay, so my question this week. You know, we're in a new decade. Hear a lot of buzz about the new games that are coming out and what gaming is going to look like for the next decade, and how there are so many people who have those influential benchmark staples in their life from the last decade, and how a lot of gamers had their first, younger gamers had their first impressions made within the last decade of those influential games like, Fortnite comes to mind because that's a very popular game with younger kids, and it got me thinking. John, when you were a kid, what was your first gaming memory?
Oh, my first gaming memory. I think...
Now, asterisk to this, because this is kind of leads into my answer. It doesn't necessarily have to be a game that you played.
Okay.
But just your first overall gaming memory.
How about a little generational thing right now?
Okay.
So, I remember one day, I don't know how it came up, but my dad was like, I was very young, and my dad was like, hey, let's put the Nintendo in your room. And I was like, what is this thing? What?
That's a big deal.
So, my cousins had Super Nintendo, but I never had like a console of my own. So he put that in my room, and I remember we had Punch-Out, we had Super Mario, obviously, Zelda, all like the classics. Baseball, which was amazing. And we went to the Tri-County Flea Market, and I bought Double Dribble and Blades of Steel.
Ooh, Blades of Steel.
Yeah. And I was always Minnesota because their colors were cool. It had nothing to do with the NHL Minnesota. It was just like purple and orange. It was awesome. So that's probably my first. And I remember my dad having the code for Punch-Out and trying to beat Mike Tyson. And I mean, obviously, no one could beat Mike Tyson.
I mean, that game is still hard even in 2020, so.
Yeah, so then let's go up a few more years, and I don't remember why or what. Maybe it was my birthday or Christmas, and my uncle and my dad were like, "Don't come downstairs. We're working on something. It's dangerous. Like there's gonna be stuff flying everywhere." I was like, "Oh, okay. I can't go near the basement." So finally, they were like, "All right, come down. We're done. Come see what we did," and they set up a Sega Genesis, and they're like, "Happy birthday," or whatever, and I was like, "Oh." This is awesome.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I got the Genesis, and there was a certain game I got. Maybe it was Star Wars, the TIE Fighter game.
Oh, those Star Wars games were hard back in the day.
Where, it just wouldn't fit in, obviously, because it's a 32X.
Yeah.
So then we went and we had to buy the 32X adapter, and he was probably like, "Oh, what did I get myself into?" But other than that, any of the most later memories that kind of started all this was, I think I mentioned in an earlier episode how on Christmas one year I mentioned this on the episode with CPA, how I just watched my cousin play Halo all day, and I was like, this is amazing. This is the next generation. This is the dance. I need this game.
That's a thing I unfortunately missed out on because I wasn't an Xbox kid. I never got to experience the Halo rush.
You never experienced a Red Ring of Death?
No, I was like I said, we've talked about it a bunch of times. I was Sony or PC for most of my life, and only recently have started getting into all the classic Xbox stuff, just because I feel like there's a whole generation that I missed out.
Yeah, check out Fusion Frenzy. You're welcome.
I'll make nuts. Hey, you know what? Let's do that. Let us know what Xbox titles I need to check out to really get up to speed. Obviously, Halo and Gears are the obvious ones, but if there's any little gems that you know of, let us know at GameMarksPod.
And what say you? What is your first memory?
So mine's actually kind of simple. When I was a kid, my dad bought us the original Nintendo and we got the original Contra and Super Mario Brothers with Duck Hunt.
Yes,
And
that's the one I had.
was really, really bad at it. Like horribly, abysmally bad at it, to the point that like my dad would like comically laugh. Like I was so bad at it. So I used to sit and watch him play through Contra and Mario, and it was something that he used to do before I would go to sleep. So like he would put me into bed, I would just lay in bed and then watch him play video games until I fell asleep. And that's like awesome. My earliest memory of just like sitting there watching my dad play Contra and get frustrated because original Contra is insanely difficult. Actually, even the newer Contras still follow that same difficulty spike. So Contra just in general is a really fun but very difficult series. And yeah, it's always been something that stuck with me. I've always loved Contra, and obviously you'd be hard pressed to find someone who doesn't love at least one of the Mario games. But hey, let us know on Twitter and all forms of social media, however you follow us or get in contact with us, what your earliest gaming memory is. Throwing this question out to the G brothers, those bassoon oboe playing bastards.
Hey, actually, news on that front. Kenny G just got a PS4, so maybe he will join us for a bit of that live stream coming up.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Great. All right, Georgie, what do you say we get into the hashtag deep dive? And this week it is sponsored by VGF Gamers.
VGF Gamers are the largest silicone gaming brand in the USA. They have a variety of different and unique skins for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One consoles and controllers. Check out their products at VGFgamers.com and use code GameMarks to receive 15% off on your order at checkout. That's GAMEMARKS at checkout. VGF Gamers. Better grips, better style. So WWF Smackdown, released for the PlayStation 1 in March 2nd of the year 2000. Published by THQ, developed by Ukes.
And this was the first of the SmackDown series of games, and this lasted until SmackDown vs. Raw 2011, and then it evolved into WWE 12, but still by Ukes and THQ, and WWE 13 was the last game to be published by THQ, kind of ending... I would say this kind of ended the SmackDown series when 2K took over.
And WWE 2K20, partially halfway, is the last game developed by Ukes.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so. But let's not get into that.
No, we'll skip that today.
So, you had mentioned something when we were actually playing through the game, and I didn't even realize that, but it totally makes sense once you said it, and I remember this happening. SmackDown 2 was released only a few months later in November of 2000.
So, if you look at No Mercy came out on November 17th, 2000. So I think that SmackDown 2 was the PlayStation answer to No Mercy.
Okay.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Which is why they did it the way they did it.
I get it. Yeah. But you know, that was there. It wasn't like it is now where every company's got their one major yearly release. Like if you had a game, you put it out, and if it was a solid game and it wasn't like riddled with bugs or anything, you could release the game and it was fine. So these were, I don't want to say simpler times, but yeah, I feel like there was less structure.
But also WrestleMania 2000 only came out a few months before this one, SmackDown 1. So I think that's just the way games were back in the day. They wanted to put out a game every year, and they had to compete with it themselves.
Yeah, you compete with yourselves, and you compete with, I don't think it's as big and prevalent as it was back then, but, they had the console wars, which was huge. So the story mode for SmackDown contains 3 main parts. The first part is a preseason, but after 10 in-game years of playing the preseason, players are allowed to skip it from there on out. However, the season mode is nearly impossible to complete. By playing it and advancing in the season mode, players gain rewards like unlockables, but it's not it's not unlockables in the sense that you unlock new characters. You unlock body parts for your creator wrestler. So like you unlock a head or a torso or, some bottoms, which I guess is kind of simple.
Yeah, so
but it worked.
This kind of bothered me. This is what I brought up in the Day of Reckoning episode, and check it out in the archives. You unlocked Stone Cold's alternate gear. It's got the camo shirt, the camo hat. But then you got to recreate him. Like unless I'm wrong, you can't put that on the existing Stone Cold Steve Austin, right?
No, I don't think that you can edit attires of the existing superstars like you could now.
Right, so I had Stone Cold's new t-shirt, I had his new hat with camouflage, and Stone Cold in real life wore, like, those short denim cut-off jeans. So the only ones available were, like, girl cut-off shorts, so I was like, oh, well, let me try these, and then he had these, like, little legs, and I was like, all right, let's just stick with the trunks. But
yeah, that's like...
You have to unlock the finishers also, so even though I made a new Stone Cold with a new attire, you could put his moveset on, but you don't have his finisher. So I remember 12-year-old John was like, oh, well, this Snapmare kind of looks like a stunner. And I remember putting like finisher only on matches and hitting a Snapmare and it would be over. Shout out to Mark Sterling.
Snapmare City, baby. Now, within that same vein, I remember the same episode that we talked about you making Stone Cold. I mentioned that I used to make Spike Dudley with Test's head and the Dudley Boys torso and legs.
I think I did that too, yeah.
I mean, Spike was the man. So once you make your creator wrestler, you have to fight through the preseason year to build up your skills, and you make your alliances and form your teams. But once you finish the preseason, you're done with it. You can't go back. There's no replaying it, and friends and foes for the creation are set. There's no fixing it. So if you befriend China in your preseason, China's your friend for your character forever. There's no going back. There's no changing it. That's just how it is. Now, in addition to that, the story mode has no voiceovers. Instead, characters meet in the backstage with moving mouths, which is cool and advanced for the time, but there's no voice acting, so it kind of sucks. But
yeah, but there was nothing to compare it to at that point because No Mercy and WrestleMania and all that did the same exact thing.
It's true, and much like a lot of the other games at this time, there's no play-by-play, there's no color commentary, there's no JR and King sitting ringside. There's no announcers or anything like that.
So my gripe with the season mode, and I played a little bit through this yesterday, but I also remember this growing up, was being a big like Hardy Boys fan or like Edge and Christian. You want to be those players. So the cool part is you could set player one, like you could make yourself control multiple people in the season mode. So it gives you a list of who you want to control, and you just run through player one, player one, player one. So if you want to be Edge, if you want to be Jeff Hardy, you could do that. Or if like a friend's over, you want to assign one to player two, you could do that. But I noticed with like I picked Jeff Hardy yesterday. I got to King of the Ring. You know, he's not in the King of the Ring because he's not Triple H, Stone Cold, The Undertaker.
Yeah.
So you see yourself kind of like sitting out a lot of like the main title picture and all that, because I think it is embedded into the game, like who competes for what. So like someone like Jeff Hardy or like, I don't know, Al Snow is not going to go for the World Heavyweight Championship. So I think that can make the season mode a little bit boring.
Yeah, it's, you know what it is? It just wasn't as fleshed out. I think we now, looking back, are so used to like a fleshed out storyline. Even in WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, like there's storylines there, and there's not really a storyline for this game, like we mentioned, but like, yeah, I agree with you.
It's very similar to what they kept for WWF Raw on Xbox. I don't know if you ever played that, but
which is a game that I'm gonna have to add to my Xbox list.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Raw 2 actually. You know, you kind of just run through as your character, and that's it. Same cutscenes, replay over and over again.
All right. So, what do you say we start talking about this this artwork for this game? Because I feel like this is one of the artworks that are, I don't want to say iconic because it's not as well known as, let's say, like the pro wrestling cover, but it's definitely on brand.
I think it's definitely one of the most iconic covers.
Really? I just think it's so on brand for SmackDown that people look at this and go, oh, this is for SmackDown, but they don't necessarily go, oh, this is the SmackDown game. Like if you remove that THQ logo, I don't know.
Okay, I get it. You just disregard the giant PlayStation up the left side, but it's okay.
I'm just saying, if you didn't have that and you just were shown the art itself, you would go, oh, this was just an ad for SmackDown. It could be in a magazine. It could be in on a subway billboard. Like it could be anything.
And I mean, if you look at this cover, then you look at SmackDown 2 and you keep going up, you could see how they evolve into what they were up until like 2011, where it was just the heavy hitters on the cover.
Yeah.
So this was kind of the start of that in that sense. So we got The Rock, we got Mankind with Mr. Sacco and China. I mean, sure, you could add
The
like
Rock,
Triple H and The Big Show, The Undertaker, but this is
The
what
Rock's
SmackDown
got
is.
Billy Gunn in a headlock?
It looks like Billy Gunn.
Pretty sure that's Billy Gunn. So the back is pretty standard fare for, most video games. Even today, it's 6 screenshots from the game. It says all the top WWF superstars with a screenshot featuring The Big Show, Kane, Triple H, and The Rock. Largest interactive backstage area ever.
First time seeing that since Mayhem.
Yeah. You have, who was that? Al Snow with a shopping cart and
Big Boss Man.
And you have the most advanced season mode ever. Make decisions affecting rivalries, backstage storylines, and tag teams. And you see the Hardy Boys attacking Val Venus backstage. And you have Revolutionary create a wrestler. Well, I almost said create a pro. Revolutionary create a superstar. Sliding scales, moves, and personality variables. And I have a little tattooed guy with his robotic Kano from Mortal Kombat style eye. And you have all signature moves, taunts, and mannerisms from from elbow to eyebrow. And of course, you have The Rock giving the People's Elbow to The Undertaker. And then my favorite game mode in every single game, the special guest referee match. It is the standard for myself and my 2 cousins when we were growing up. It is all we ever played. We would switch out who played the special guest referee, and we did it from this game and pretty much every other game that had a special guest referee mode. It was the best.
But this one was cool because they like added the shirt on for you and stuff.
Yeah, well, you could see how big this game mode got and how, I guess, not integral to the foundation of the game, but in No Mercy, one of the attires for all their wrestlers is a ref shirt.
Yep.
Which is super cool.
But you don't need to use it.
No.
And also, if you want to edit one, that's usually the one you got rid of.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
So looking at the screenshot of The Rock giving the People's Elbow to The Undertaker, we know it says all signature moves, taunts, mannerisms from elbow to eyebrow. So we saw the Undertaker entrance. He rolled his eyes in the back of the head. That was cool. The Rock,
that was super cool.
He raised the eyebrow. That was cool. So a few things in game involving taunts that I think kind of added to this and kind of started them saying, okay, we could do this. I was playing as Jeff Hardy yesterday, and one of his taunts is just him going to all fours. And that immediately in my head, I was like, oh my God, I remember this. You could have Jeff Hardy taunt, drop down to all fours, and then you could have Matt or whoever run off of his back and do a poetry in motion.
That's awesome.
And another match, I was China, and I just randomly did a backflip as a taunt, which makes me think that maybe you could do her kind of like back handspring elbow into the corner, which we never did, but maybe something like that.
Man, that's interesting. I feel like that's a lot of the ways that games from this time tried to make things a little more personal for and like signature taunts, signature moves that, obviously there are some people who come out for their entrance and they're just very generic. The McMahons come to mind. They just look left, they just look right, they open their mouth a little bit, and then that's it. A couple other random wrestlers do that, but they had these certain extra special taunts for the higher up on the card guys. Kane has a pyro when he comes out, and he has all of his like special mannerisms and taunts and stuff like that. So, Matt and Jeff having these signature taunts, China having a backflip, like it just, or back handspring, it all makes sense, and it's like a little polished extra. If you went and tried to find it, you did.
So let's talk about the entrances real quick, because this is actually one of the most disappointing parts of the game, at least for me when I was younger, because I liked looking at the entrances like, oh, how'd they do this? How'd they add it? And it's just a music video, and the guy walking in front of the music video. There's no stage, there's no Titantron, there's no screen. You're just walking in front of your entrance video, and a little name pops up in a generic WWF lower third, and it's not even like their full names. Like Billy Gunn says Mr. Ass, Stone Cold says Stone Cold, not Stone Cold Steve Austin. So I think the entrances left a lot to be desired, and they did this again in SmackDown 2. I don't know, it kind of seems, I guess, lazy.
Yeah, I do remember in SmackDown 2 though, there's a lot more entrance options for your creative superstar, and I do remember one of them being like you could come out on a motorcycle, and then you would dip the motorcycle, and like you would wipe out. And
Yes. I remember that.
Pissed myself as a kid. I was just like, why would this be in the game? Who would pick it? And obviously I picked it because it was hilarious.
Yeah, why not? So the marketing for this game was actually pretty sweet. Do you remember the SmackDown commercial ad spot? I think we actually posted this on our social media last week.
Yeah.
Not much, it's kind of similar to, like, I guess Mayhem, how the guy's trying to get the girl, it's like a story involved, and then Goldberg and Sting burst out of the building. But instead, this time it's The Rock. He flicks a coin and he says, "Shine this up real nice." And the valet says, "And I know right where to stick it."
Shine this up real nice, jabroni. And he goes, "I know just where to stick it, Rock."
He kind of looks like Papa John too.
Oh, and then he walks up to the receptionist and goes, "What's your name?" And the concierge desk, "It doesn't matter what my name is." And Kane's in a kitchen.
Yeah, so it's a pretty like fun ad spot that when you saw it on TV, you'd laugh and you'd be like, "What is this?" And then the like gameplay comes on and you're like, "Oh, this looks pretty cool."
Finally, The Rock has come back to PlayStation as Edge spears a person into a swimming pool.
I mean, yeah, what else would you do if you're
How
Edge and
great
you're
is
around a
that?
swimming pool? So we've talked a lot about different superstars. What do you say we get into the actual roster of the game?
Yeah, you know what? I will take this one on this week.
Please be
You're
easy
sick.
on my throat today.
I would say, you're sick, allow me.
I'll do the unlockables.
Okay. So, you have Al Snow, Big Boss Man, The Big Show, Billy Gunn, Bradshaw, Bubba Ray Dudley, but it's spelled Ray Dudley, Chris Jericho, Christian, Chyna, Deborah, D'Lo Brown, Devon Dudley, Edge, Farouk, Gangrel, The Godfather, Hardcore Holly, Jeff Hardy, Kane, Ken Shamrock, Mankind, Mark Henry, Matt Hardy, Paul Bearer, Road Dogg, The Rock, Shane McMahon, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Steve Blackman, Test, Tori, Triple H, The Undertaker, Val Venus, Vince McMahon, and X-Pac.
Wow. All the heavy hitters.
It's great. I think this is probably one of the better rosters.
Definitely a huge step up if you think about like Warzone and Attitude.
Oh, absolutely.
So
So what about these unlockables?
you could unlock the Blue Meanie, Gerald Briscoe, Ivory, Jacqueline, Midian, Pat Patterson, Prince Albert, Stephanie McMahon, Stevie Richards, Viscera, alternate attire for Stone Cold, and alternate attire for The Rock.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. I honestly don't remember Blue Meanie or Midian, so I probably just
I
didn't
don't
unlock these
remember
as a
them
kid.
being in the game. Yeah, I don't remember them being in the game either, but it could just be me. So, in terms of the gameplay for this, you have quite a few different game modes that you can play through here. So you have your... You know what? I think this is just going to be what I call it from now on. You have your exhibition modes.
Exhibition
modes. Singles, tag team, handicap, battle royal, Royal Rumble, King of the Ring, hardcore, falls count anywhere, cage, survival, which is a 3 or 4-way dance, special guest referee, and an I Quit match.
I remember just how groundbreaking it was to have half of these matches in there. You have the old school WWF cage, the black one. You have an I Quit match, which there's a microphone ringside, and you have to actually take the microphone, and rather than pin your opponent, you kind of step over them and you mouth do you quit? And then they say yes or no. That was awesome.
It's game changing. It's innovative. It forced, other competitors to implement new and exciting features into their games for the next year. And it also even challenges THQ and Ukes to step it up for the next game and add more stuff for SmackDown 2 and all the other games up until 13.
Which they did, because they added TLC, Ladder, Hell in a Cell, all for SmackDown 2. So
yeah,
set the bar.
You also have the option to create a pay-per-view. The season mode, which we touched on, which you can choose who's player 1 and CPU. You also have the option, which is really cool through your season, to have multiple people play. You can skip your matches, you can play your players' matches, or you can skip them, and you have the ability to cut promos and do backstage interviews, which, again, something different, something new, wasn't prominently featured in games prior to this.
And some of them they just did just to do. In one of mine, it just randomly said loading, and it was Jeff Hardy on the Titantron, and it was Jeff Hardy has something to say, and then you wrestle Billy Gunn after.
Yeah. Sometimes they just use it as filler, but it was just an interesting little transition, a little extra polish. Now, you also had belt records, your rankings, options, and then, the main bread and butter for years to come. The create a superstar mode, which we've talked about, how it's kind of just like a revolving door. You pick a head, you pick a torso, you
Not
pick your
the
bottoms.
best create a wrestler mode.
No, but still fun. Definitely at the time, WrestleMania 2000 was way more advanced. But, beggars can't be choosers. You have way more match styles in this than you did in games previous to this. So if you had to take a hit somewhere, at least there's still a create a superstar, and there's some unique and what's the word? Generic, I guess? Generic heads, generic torsos, generic bodies. That way you're not okay, I'm going to play with Stone Cold's head and Triple H's torso and Road Dogg's legs, and this is my new wrestler. There were some people, there's a robot head. There's a couple different luchador mask styles. There's a robot, a knight, a samurai, a T-Rex head. There's things that you can make there to make it your own and have a customized feel.
Kind of like Mayhem. Almost exactly like Mayhem.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, not the best, but it was there.
So the developer of SmackDown, Ukes, had previously created the well-known Taukan Retsuden, which we played as Power Move Pro Wrestling, a series of wrestling games in Japan for the New Japan Pro Wrestling organization. Now, despite this, the game engine used in SmackDown is not based on the contemporary Taukan Retsuden titles, but rather the Pro Wrestling, a title developed by Ukes as a part of D3 Publishers' Simple series, and it was released several months in Japan beforehand. So this is still very common practice today. We're using engines to help build the next year's titles. This is something that 2K's done pretty much since the inception of their series, sometimes to a fault. A lot of things were uncovered this year about the 2K series where a lot of the mechanics were pulled from 2K18 rather than 2K19.
Oof.
And, It's very common practice. A lot of AAA developers still do this for major series like Gears of War and Call of Duty and stuff like that. So it's not super uncommon, and it's, a practice that was happening all the way back in 2000.
I'm curious about like the mocap for this game. I'm not sure if there actually was any, because some of like the collision, some of the I gave you like a chop and you did a flip bump as Paul Bearer.
Yeah.
So while it's like a little silly and not realistic, it's cool. But I want to know like how they did it.
Yeah. Now, I feel like I've been hogging a lot of the talking points this week, and I'm doing that for the sake of your throat. I don't want you to be in too much pain, but I mean, it's time, John. This is your moment. It is time for some R&R. It is time for some ratings and reception.
All right. So WWF Smackdown received favorable reviews according to video game review aggregator Game Rankings. The game was a bestseller in the UK upon release, and again 3 months later. So think about that. The game came out, it was a bestseller. The game 3 months later was a bestseller. 5 months after that, a new game came out, which was the highest selling wrestling game on the PlayStation.
Could you imagine if game companies still did that? Where they release a game, it's the number one game for months, and then a couple of months later, they release another game that casts a massive shadow on what was the number one game.
Yeah. And then WWF Smackdown received a Platinum Sales Award from the Entertainment and Leisure Software Publishers Association, indicating sales of at least 300,000 copies in the UK. Now, I don't have the US numbers, but I have to think it's somewhere close to that. And
yeah, it has to be at least on par.
SmackDown also received a Greatest Hits title. Everyone knows the PlayStation 1, the little green on the side that says Greatest Hits, just like WrestleMania and In Your House.
Yep.
So, the ratings.
I'm ready.
Like we said, Game Rankings gave it an 86%. We had All Game with a 3.5 out of 5. EGM, 8.75 out of 10. Eurogamer, 9 out of 10. Game Informer, 9 out of 10. Game Revolution, A-. Game Fan, 90%. Game Pro, 4.5 stars. GameSpot, 8.7 out of 10. IGN, 8.8 out of 10. And CPM, 4.5 stars out of 5. So overall, probably the most unreal ratings we've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, we have GameSpot, but I feel like I'm missing something this week, man.
Metacritic?
Yeah, I'm it's 2 weeks in a row without a Metacritic.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, one day we'll see them again.
Man, all right. What do you think about getting into some fast facts right now?
All right, let's do it.
Okay, start us off.
On the opening credits, it states Gangrel is owned by White Wolf Entertainment, as Gangrel owned his own character and character name.
And that's something that's prevalent through pretty much every title that he's in.
Yep.
In the Create a Wrestler mode, 2 versions of Jeff Jarrett, current and past with long hair, appear under the head models along with the Angry Goldberg model. Ooh.
Also in Create a Wrestler mode, alternate gear are available, such as Triple H's old tights, Christian's old vampire shirt, and alternate Paul Bearer colors.
Huh. Now, if you're like us and you're looking to pick up the original WWF Smackdown for the PlayStation 1, I have great news. Currently on eBay, it's going for approximately $10, so it's definitely a cheap find and something that you should add to your collection.
Not bad at all.
Alrighty. It is time for our weekly tournament that we like to call Clash at the Feast. You want to intro it?
Alright, so this week we played through a bunch of games, exhibitions,
Yeah.
And, you know, we kind of couldn't stop because we were having fun. So we played quite a bunch before we said, all right, let's do this. Just like George said, he used to do special guest referee matches. I picked China, the ninth wonder of the world. George, he picked Paul Bearer, the high flyer.
Well.
Yeah. And our special guest referee, Mr. Smackdown himself, Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Now to start the match, this is where Paul Bearer messed up. This is where he didn't grab the urn by the balls and beat China. He made the mistake of hitting the referee The Rock with a strike, which then The Rock proceeded to lay the smackdown on his ass.
He whooped that candy ass.
Do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. So this was actually, I mentioned it last week, but this was a very competitive back and forth match. It was not one-sided. There was no steam rolling over anybody. Like, you hit a bunch of good moves, I hit a bunch of good moves. They had a lot of reversals. It was a well-fought, even, competitive match. Except, like you said, in the beginning of that match, I went to go throw a punch at you, accidentally hit the ref, and then, yeah. So that happens, some time passes, we're in the match, and I hit my very, very effective special of the DDT. And then you get up and you hit me with the pedigree. And, I'm not going to say that it was a fair win. But Clash pins me. Rock gives a little fast count.
1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. And your winner for the second week in a row. Am I right?
Second week in a row.
The one, the only, Johnny Clash.
Play my music.
Now, I think maybe during our live stream we do this again. We revisit SmackDown 1.
You know, you seem a little salty that I beat you this week because
I'm not salty that you beat me. I'm salty that the fast count.
Okay, but how many of these games have I had to play on a keyboard or something, or my controller was like half working? Yeah, just we'll run it back.
Hey, you always have the option of re-challenging. If there's any game that you want to go back, that you think that you lost in an unfair or unjust manner, that's what this live stream can be about.
Okay.
We can play through, you got to remember, we've got 6 hours to kill.
Oh, with you. Oh my God.
You've been doing a podcast with me for the last 21 weeks. You don't think that you can sit in a room with me and play video games for 6 hours? God, if that's the worst thing that happens to you that day,
it might be.
You'll be so lucky, John. I'm fun, damn it.
And for the record, no, you beat me last week as Giant Panther. So this is not 2 weeks in a row.
Damn. All right, well, maybe next week. Maybe next week.
So as of now, you are up 7-12, but I'm coming back.
All right. Our ratings time. Each week, we play the game. We give up some facts and ratings and reviews. And then it's time to offer up our rating of Play It Forever. Woo! Or Future Endeavor.
You're fired!
Johnny Clash, WWF Smackdown. Will you play it forever or Future Endeavor?
I think WWF Smackdown. Between SmackDown 2, you got to think. Do I want to just play SmackDown 2? Do I want to play this? Do I want to play Royal Rumble for Dreamcast? No one wants to do that. Smackdown for PlayStation, play it forever. Woo! And you, George?
So, I also have the same thoughts as you. How does this game stack up to the other games that were coming out? Is it easier to just be like, this was the first one. You could go play 2 or Know Your Role or, Here Comes the Pain or Smackdown for the PlayStation 1. I will play it forever.
Yes!
Woo! So, let us know on all forms of social media. You can find us at GameMarksPod how you feel about Smackdown for the PlayStation 1. Any memories, if you played it, if you owned it, if you still own it. Is it something that you're going to pick up on eBay for $10? Let us know. Now, do you want to let everyone know what we're playing next week on the podcast, John?
Oh, yes, I do, because I'm excited about this one. We mentioned this last week on the podcast, that this is probably the first WWF title ever. But we will be playing Micro League Wrestling.
Very excited. Can't wait. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a good title. Never played it before, and I always look forward to playing the games that I've never played because it's a brand new experience, and you can't fake that. It's completely authentic reactions all the time. But that is going to do it for us this week on the Game Marks Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on all forms of social media at GameMarksPod. Leave us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to this podcast wherever great podcasts can be found. And don't forget, some point this coming, let's say, within the next 2 to 3 months, there will be bonus content. There will be a live stream. There may be a little pro wrestling tee store opening up. Who knows? All of this for 2020, the year of the Game Marks Podcast. With that, say goodnight, Johnny.
Game over. Marks.
Oh, he's sick.